Good evening and welcome to Momentous Live, episode 61, coming to you only 2 minutes late this evening. I'm Tristan Jutra, and with me is...
It's me, Ged.
Why does it always sound like Mario?
It's me, Amadio. Yeah.
Welcome, Ged. So, I got to tell you, and she gave us notice last week. The lovely and talented Tasia Custodi told us that she was not going to be able to join us because her mom was going to be in town, even though we said her mom should come on the show. That didn't fly. So we're going to be out Tasia for a couple of weeks. Will still has an ongoing family health matter that he's attending to. And unfortunately, Gray had to bail at the last minute because he's attending to some, he's triaging some work emergencies.
Triaging a registered nurse.
Yes,
right?
RN, yeah. Registered nurse.
An RN.
Or it's right now. One or the other. I think
one of the two.
Yeah, we'll just like to imagine it's both. It's Schrodinger's nurse /
Yeah. Absolutely.
So it's just me and Ged. And Ged, we haven't seen you in months. It's great to have you back. We're going to talk about some of your projects a little later in the show, but how have things been otherwise? How's your pandemic going?
I'll be honest, man. Things are great. Yeah, it has been a while since I've been on. I was kind of very passion project heavy for a while there, and then real life work kind of caught up. And it's amazing when you work full time. Like, it really gets in the way of doing the other stuff you like to do that you don't really get paid for. It's really, I mean, don't get me wrong, it's fun. I do love my job. I think my boss might be watching, so I better make sure I say that. No, I do. I love it. But I admit that there are some projects that have fallen off that I love doing. And there are some that magically have come alive, which I see you've put at the bottom. So we'll have a little chat about that.
Well, the advice I always give people whenever they're not able to do the things that they really want to do, or say join us on the stream, is just quit your job.
Just do it. The world will figure itself out. Stream more, work less.
Live on credit card debt. What's the worst that could happen?
Draw a picture of a gorilla. Everything will be fine.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So let's get into it. We've got all sorts of fun and exciting stories, and some stories that are really Gray Williams material, but we will do our best to fumble through or maybe skim over. We're going to start first with a little bit of follow-up. Mm-hmm. Last November, I believe, we got word about Apple's do-it-yourself program, the self-service repair program that they hinted at back in the fall, and they just launched it last week. And this all ties into a lot of the discussion that's been happening about the right to repair. We've seen issues from anywhere from computer and smartphone manufacturers to John Deere manufacturing tractor equipment, and whether or not people who buy this equipment are actually able to and or even allowed to repair and maintain some of these devices themselves. So the pressure has been increasing, especially in jurisdictions like the European Union and even in North America now. So Apple is responding to this, trying to get ahead of things a little bit, especially as they come under more and more scrutiny from legislators. And part of the challenge is a lot of Apple's products have gotten so thin over the years that they've made it so a lot of the components are not so modular as they used to be. Laptops, for example, used to be able to swap out hard drives, replace them with other hard drives or solid state drives. We could upgrade the RAM ourselves. That's not really the case so much anymore. Smartphones have, the Apple ones anyway, have never had easily serviceable parts. You could get battery repairs from that, the little kiosk in the mall, or you want to pay 3 times the price, you go to Apple themselves. But unlike some other smartphone manufacturers, which to be fair have been moving away from this, Apple's never had removable batteries or removable storage. But the trends are towards simplicity, tightness of design, because the more ports you have, the more loosey-goosey things are. They don't feel as tight. So it's all these trade-offs. So anyhow, in response to these sorts of pressures, Apple has finally unveiled their self-service repair program, whereby you can go to a janky-looking website that doesn't look like Apple at all, because it's not really. They've outsourced a lot of this to another organization called Spot. and you can go there and order parts. Not every single part for iPhones, and this is only for a certain number of recent iPhones, iPhone 12 and 13 series, with the idea being that they would add additional products as time goes on. So things like screens, camera arrays, and the like. So you can find manuals there, and you can even purchase or rent the certain types of equipment to help you do this. Now, the catch is, there's been all sorts of ink spills over the last week on this, and some YouTubers have made videos. When you add it all up, the price to do all this, to rent the equipment and or buy the parts, you're only within a few dollars of just getting Apple to do it for you.
Yeah.
So, Ged, from your experience, whether it's in tech or in the automotive world, do you think this is Apple simply checking a box here to avoid scrutiny, or is this a sincere effort? I mean, it's hard to read minds, obviously, but from what you can do, is this a sincere effort to actually help people repair their own equipment?
Well, it's funny because when I first read this article, were you ever a Big Bang Theory watcher?
I was not, but I am aware of its existence.
So there is this episode where they want to upgrade the hard drive in their TiVo, and Sheldon is hell bent on not doing it because you'd have to break the seal, and that seal is a coven between the purchaser and the manufacturer that you will not, edit the guts of the product. So when I was reading this, I was howling because all I could think about was how, like, you couldn't do that for years. Like you couldn't break that seal.
Mm-hmm.
Is it sincere? No, obviously, of course not. I mean,
I
was literally
cynical Ged comes out.
It's like $1,300 for that machine you're looking at.
Well, you can rent it for $49, just to be clear. Yeah.
Or you can go to the mall. That every mall has that kiosk where that guy will do it for like $100, and he'll throw in 17 silicone cases, and, a pair of earphones that were out like 3 years ago. No. What do you think?
Well,
is it sincere, or is this? It's got to be just checking a box, right?
I think it's maybe a little from column A and a little from column B, because I mean, if you think about there is in Apple's DNA from way back, like back to the Apple 1 and Apple 2, like in the 70s, there's still a little bit of waz there, right? The idea that you'd be able to put your own machines together and upgrade them and the like. And certain Apple machines over the years, you've been able to do that. The most recent being the Mac Pro, which came out in 2019, which is a beast of a tower with tons and tons of slots and lots of upgradability options there. But I think when it comes to the less modular devices, they become these pristine, sort of inviolable objects. Part of that is a function of the Johnny Ive era of Apple design, which went from the late 90s up until just a couple of years ago, when he went off into the titanium gray sunset or what have you. So yeah, I think it's one of these things that it's here for people if they want it. I think they would rather have people do this themselves, or start up their own kind of, like, it's giving them the guidance to do things properly, as opposed to doing like the mall kiosk guys, which can give you like crappy glass, you can get into issues with like security issues with the replacing sensors like Touch ID or Face ID and stuff like that. The newer phones, it's not a trivial matter to replace these things, because they might not work properly beyond that because of the secure enclave, et cetera, et cetera. So they're saying, okay, if you get the parts from us and follow our instructions, here's the way to do it. The trouble being is that when you open this up and then people screw up their phones, like, that's the whole point of like, oh, it could void warranty. Now, I don't recall in here if you follow these directions, if it'll void your warranty or not. If it was me, I would just like wait. I wouldn't do this kind of thing if it was still in warranty, because it's just, whenever you get in arguments with gigantic corporations that don't really offer you a lot of recourse, it's best to give them as a weak a case as possible, right? So it's like, I've done everything. I haven't broken the seal of the covenant.
I didn't do it. I didn't break the covenant. But you know what it does do is it gives, the guys that have been doing this stuff in the malls and the smaller repair shops, it now gives them, all joking aside, it gives them great tools. It's $1,250, which to a normal user, you and I would never do. But if you're a guy that this is part of their business, then hey, like, Apple's now, giving me a tutorial through their parts website that looks like it was made with the opening price point of Shopify. Uh, and I can order parts, and I can now take care of my clients in a better fashion. So I think that there is a win there. I
Yep.
just don't think the win is for you and I. The win is for the guy in the kiosk, and that's cool. I'm good with that.
Agreed. I think it helps legitimize those independent players and say, "Hey,
Yep.
you guys want to go legit? Here's the way to do it."
Yeah.
And
Go
without
to the Shopify site.
Yeah, exactly. So you don't end up with, trashy Frankenstein iPhones at the end of the day. So to be clear, this is for iPhone 12 and 13 series, and including the Mini and the Pro, the Max, but also the iPhone SE. And as time goes on, I'm sure they'll add the iPhone 14. But it's important. So iPhone 11 and older, no, it's like too far ago, and it's not really in their interest to service those, because it's apparently there were some changes in the hardware from the 11 to 12 generation. Or it's just like they got to make a cutoff somewhere, and it's got to make economic sense for Apple, because they got to keep all these parts handy and the like. Often when you bring in your device to an Apple store to get repaired, depending on what part it needs, sometimes they'll just swap the phone out. I mean, now. There was a time when I used to never so much with the iPhones, but there was a time when I used to upgrade my own laptops. There, up until 2015, that was the last year that the Apple laptops were easily upgradable, the RAM and or the hard drives or SSDs. I don't do that so much anymore. Like I never did iMacs because they were a pain to take apart. With the large screen and the seal in there. Again, breaking the seal of the covenant, all that stuff. And it's just, there's a greater risk of like cracking the glass. So I have a guy, luckily. Everyone's got a guy. Everyone's got a guy or gal, just don't want to be whatever. So it's good to have someone that's trusted. And then this is my guy for out of warranty stuff. When stuff's in warranty, go to the Apple store. But for I kind of, in some ways, I kind of miss the ability to tinker. You just give yourself an hour, spread everything out on the dining room table, keep track of your screws. But but I'm a little older, and it's also time is at a premium, because I've always helped friends with theirs, and just did recently with a 2010 laptop. But I just like, I'm so pressed for time right now. I'm just going to get my guy to do it. So Ged, my question for you is, what sort of things in your, over your, career as an adult human being, have you tended to try to repair yourself versus not? And how successful were you at that?
I must admit, unless it was calibration of home theater, I have always had that guy. I had one of those 2009 to 2011 MacBook Pro. I had my hard drive upgraded. I had my RAM upgraded. I love that thing. I literally just gave that MacBook to someone who needed it, and it still runs. We wiped it clean, and it still moved. I mean, obviously you can't update it anymore. But I've never really, when it came to electronics, tried to really dive in there. It's just never been my jam, ever. I look at the idea of opening up any type of small electronic device, and I don't have the hands for it. Have you watched the video? But by the way, as it's been playing, that briefcase, when he opens it, I feel like Doc Brown is hiding plutonium in that thing. Like when he opened it, it literally looked like I was watching Back to the Future.
I was getting nuclear football vibes, for the Secret Service carrying that around for the president.
No, I was looking out for the Libyans as they were rolling in their van, like when he was opening that. No, tinkering with that sort of stuff has just never been my jam. You? I guess you talked about the laptop. And
but even further back, my buddy Chris and I, we were always fond of taking things apart, but putting things back together was a different story. And I had my Commodore VIC-20 that I got in 1981. A few years later, for some reason, I was mucking about with was it a paper clip or a safety pin? And I realized if I touched some of the pins in the joystick port, I could make the thing on the screen move. It's like, oh, that's cool. But the problem is I accidentally touched two at the same time, and it shorted out. That blew a fuse in the VIC-20, which, again, I didn't really know much about what kind of fuse to get. And so I found some fuse, probably from my stepdad's workshop at the time, stuck that in there, and it kind of worked, but the joystick worked never this joystick port never worked properly again.
Yeah.
So I learned my lesson that way. Just like if I'm going to tinker, do it properly. I've for when it comes to like even like cars and whatnot, oil changes can do that stuff, can change tires. But again, the last couple of decades, it's like I'd just as soon take it somewhere and let them go from A to Z with all that kind of stuff. And you feel kind of bad because a lot of that stuff's pretty straightforward. But even stuff like washing cars, like I mean,
Oh yeah.
yeah.
Car tires. My wife got me a wonderful jack last year.
Mhm.
I definitely do all the tires. I do our
There you
friends'
go.
tires.
Mhm.
Friend of mine bought one of the little impact guns. I don't tighten with it, but it's really good to kind of get it going.
Mhm.
I do enjoy washing the car, and I love tire season. I don't know what it is. I love slugging tires.
The smell of Armor All in the air.
Right? 9 a.m. a little elbow grease.
Well, you're a much more industrious gentleman than I am. But speaking of cars, another little bit of follow-up that we have from, I think, last summer when we had you on last,
Yeah.
we were speaking about the Ford crate engine. And we even saw this Ford, I think it's an F-150 that Ford had been
F100.
trotting. It was an F-100, sorry.
Yeah.
That Ford had been trotting around, and they called it the Illuminator.
Yeah.
Anyway, you're more familiar with this story than I am. Why don't you give us like the Cole's notes on what this is about and what's the update here? It seems like they've been trotting this vehicle around to a lot of YouTubers in the last few weeks.
Yeah. So when I was on here last time, vehicles were part of it. We talked about the Ford Lightning. I believe we talked
Mm-hmm.
about the Hummer that was coming out. And
Yep.
I remember I was losing my mind, but it was one of those episodes where we were jammed with stuff. And I remember afterwards, like not freaking out or going nuclear. But I was like, oh my goodness, like why didn't we talk about this more? Like the implications of this thing are incredible.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember everyone looking at me like, man, like go away, like leave me alone with this stuff. But here it is, like this thing ends up at SEMA and it's called the Illuminator. So for years, Ford offered a crate motor called the Illuminator.
Gotcha.
And it was basically, I believe, some type of V6 that you could dump in a huge amount of vehicles so that rather throwing your vehicle out, Ford had this crate motor you could buy for a few $1,000.
What does
You
crate
could dump
mean
it into a car.
what does crate mean in this
So
context?
it's basically just a separate motor. So rather than, you don't have to pull it out of a car, it doesn't come off an old heap. They physically make a motor.
Okay.
So what they've done
it's
in
an
this
OEM, new in the box. Yeah.
You got it. Literally comes in a crate in a box. So you can
Okay.
buy some motors like this. Nissan does them, although they're very expensive. Honda does them. Ford did them for years. But Ford's really jumping on this Illuminator, obviously, as a play on the name. And the idea being that it comes with, you get your HV motor and traction inverter. You still have to do stuff, but this offers a humongous opportunity for anybody who wants to restore an old vehicle. So like they used a Tesla motor in an old Porsche a little while ago. The thing was a work of art. They've got two of these things running in this Ford truck. It gives it like 400 horsepower. And like myself, who's a big Mini guy, like I would love to electric resto mod, an old Mini classic from the 90s. I mean, we all know that it's going to be very difficult over the next 10, 15, 20, 30, 40 years to run a gas car. And I know that's kind of one of the pieces we're going to talk about. But what this does is, in theory, if the Ford can take this Illuminator and then other manufacturers can jump in with the harnesses needed to run what would have been the transmission and all the other stuff, you can start taking vehicles and literally swapping them out for hopefully sub $10,000 and having your car be electric, which is kind of amazing.
So the question that springs to my mind is that the motor is one part, but what about those other pieces that you mentioned, like meshing it to the drivetrain and like also the battery packs? Like, where is that going? It seems like this is great, but there's a lot that's not being said as part of this equation.
Correct. Yeah. And I mean, it's great that this Ford motor is available at $4,000 or $5,000
US, yeah.
But there's another 15 grand minimum in stuff you got to do.
Read the fine print, folks.
Yeah, there's a company I follow out of California, and all he does is high-end restored minis. And there's a company in the US or in the UK that's literally shipping him an entire Tesla motor harness and all that stuff, and he's going to put it into the car. I mean, it is still going to be a process. We're probably 5 to 8 years away from it really being cost effective. Right now, to fully restore, again, I'm speaking from the mini world, you're probably 23,000 euro. Like
Wow.
you're probably close to 30,000 bucks. So
this is the sort of thing that really the economics makes sense for collector cars.
you got it. So like your early 70s Jags, your
Yeah.
old Minis, your old Corvettes, like you better believe there's going to be a 67 Stingray out there with these Mach-E motors in it, right? Like
your 2003 Honda Accord maybe doesn't cut it.
Your Civic Si. Yeah. Yeah, so it definitely, but the concept, like this is a big step forward though, right? Like it's important not to take away from it. This is a large step forward. Now it's like hey guys, here's the motor. We've made it affordable. You know, can someone jump on? Can like a BMW jump on who's known for making incredible transmissions? Can they jump on and make something that's out there? Can Nissan jump in, who loves to do great product? Can they jump in and do something?
And this is the sort of thing that will really enable the explosion of a cottage industry in this sort of retrofitting of EV motors, batteries, et cetera, to such classic cars, which I think will definitely broaden the appeal of EVs. One of the things that you hear about is some of people's resistance to EVs, not all, but some of it is just like a lot of them just kind of look the same. Like there's like here in the Vancouver area, there's so many Teslas, and even like lots of other modern cars, whether there's EVs or not, because of the aerodynamic requirements to get the gas mileage or the EV efficiency, everything just ending up looking like a capsule. Like everything's it's the Advilization of car design. And sure, if you have a more classic design, it's not going to be as aerodynamic, but there is still there's a kind of a visceral attachment that people get to their classic cars, from memories, just the designs. There's a lot more variety of designs over the last century or so compared to what we've seen just in the last couple of decades. Everything has really become a bit more homogenous. Now that more manufacturers are getting into the EV games, we're getting a little bit of variety. But just the overall, if you look at the Mach-E, if you rip the badges off of a Ford Mach-E, it's not that dissimilar from like a Tesla Model Y when you look at the overall shape and stuff.
I love it.
Yeah, I mean, it's great.
I get a lot. It's
gotten great reviews.
I love it.
And it's actually one of the top non-Tesla EVs that are out there right now. It's great range. Some people argue it's like, oh, it's not really a Mustang. Why did they use that name? I think it was brilliant to use that name because it brings people into the fold a little bit, right? Like, and it's the only sedan that Ford still makes is the Mustang. And so now you've got an EV version.
Yeah. I mean, you and I would sit on different ends of the fence when it came to the Mustang badge. I mean, the Mustang badge should be reserved for a sports car. I think they could get it out of the park with just the Mach-E. But I do love the vehicle. I think it's
a marketing choice. Yeah.
100%. Yeah.
Mach-E fastback. Anyhow,
it's so nice.
So let's we'll look forward to the continued growth of this cottage industry where people are retrofitting. There's all sorts of YouTube channels where you can see people working on these kind of projects, whether it's outfitting Volkswagen minibuses or Aston Martins or what have you. It's really neat to see. So more to come on that front. And that brings us to another sort of related issue on this front does it make more sense from an environmental perspective for someone to buy a new EV or an older gas-powered car? Because there's a certain environmental impact to buying any new car, EV or otherwise, but especially EVs, given the amount of certain resources, such as lithium, that have to be mined, often under questionable regimes, and other rare earth minerals that go in there. And there's so the politics aside, just from the environmental side, there's a great article from Ars Technica, which basically runs through the numbers about EPA testing, gas mileage. The new gas mileage is kilowatt hours per 100 miles, right? How many kilowatt hours does it take to push your car 100 miles? It's funny that I look at these numbers and I see that, like I don't know if you know this, Ged, but a couple of months ago, here at MOMENTOUS HQ, we got ourselves a 2016 Kia Soul EV, just as a little city runabout.
I did not know this.
Found an amazing deal on one. It was at a Volkswagen dealership, so we got it. It was marked down a bit, and we negotiated a bit more off because it needed some new tires, and still has 2 years left on the battery warranty. The battery's still at 95% health, and literally 95% of our driving is taken care of by this, even because it only has 100 to 150 kilometer range depending on the time of year. Winter not so great. Summer is when you max out. And for road trips, we still have our other car, our gas powered engine, and it's worked great. But for everything else, we just hop in this little Kia. And I've never been a huge Kia fan, but they've gone all in on EVs. They've been doing this for a while now, and they've got 6 or 7 EV models due within the next couple of years. So they're building that expertise and loving it. So anyway, but that's just a long way of saying that the battery on that is only 27 kilowatt hours total. And so that's what, and that's the rating that they're looking at these vehicles for, kilowatt hours per 100 miles. So yeah, like I said, this only gets 100 to 150 kilometers, which, you split the difference and you got 100 miles in there. But these other models, like these Teslas, the Lucid, the Chevy Bolt, Hyundai Kona, like they can go much further than 100 miles depending on which model we're talking about, because they've got larger capacity batteries. And if you want to go on road trips, you're definitely going to need a larger capacity battery, because even with a supercharger or a fast charging station, it's going to be 20-30 minutes to
for sure
get to 80%. So you use the washroom, get a sandwich, smoke them if you got them, that kind of thing. So looking at this new version of miles per gallon, and seeing the cost, the sort of the environmental cost recovery, or as they call it, the carbon footprint break even point, what this article finds is that at about 2 years of having owned an EV, you're sort of broken even on your carbon footprint. So if you plan on keeping a car for more than 2 years, you're good to go. Now, if you're swapping every 2 years or less on a lease program, then it becomes a little bit more problematic, because you're just, you are adding to the used market pool, which I guess has its own merits. But if I come from the school of, you buy something good quality and just like run it into the ground, right?
Yeah, and I really like the article. I actually really enjoyed reading it. The one thing from a car business standpoint that they left out was, in a way, it's like apples and oranges. You're not a gas vehicle in a new electric vehicle, obviously. You're talking about buying a new EV versus a pre-owned gas. You purchased your Kia pre-owned. Technically, you're clear from the word go. So is it slightly worse to do an EV? Absolutely. I mean, there's no shortage of stories out there about the tools that are needed to mine lithium and the abundance of gasoline that they do use. And I think households and HQs such as yourselves, where you have the one gas and one electric, is literally the perfect combination. If you're going somewhere that requires fuel, use it. 90% of your driving is going to be used by your electric vehicle when you're going to Costco or the market or wherever else. You just make sure you get in your car, make sure you bleed your brakes out so your brakes don't pit in your gas vehicle. And which, by the way, is something everybody needs to learn how to do. It is a simple process. I'm happy to explain it to anybody, but it will save you thousands of dollars in brake repairs. Looked at a new EV versus used gas, and you're already seeing pre-owned EVs enter the market. So to me, the EV still makes sense as long as you have that other gas vehicle in the house.
And part of the issue with the brakes that you allude to there is the fact that if we have, because we're using regenerative braking in EVs most of the time, and there's usually at least two different modes there, more aggressive and less aggressive, that
Mhm.
your actual disc brakes aren't getting engaged virtually at all unless
Yep.
you are braking super aggressively. So it's good
Yep.
to, maybe do the non aggressive regen driving once in a while, and and just for fun, go and like slam on your brakes once in a while, or do the, if you're even more confident, you could do the brake bleed, or have your
No,
local
and you literally just nailed it.
yeah.
Brake bleeding is the grown up term of get your car to 60 if you're an
Oh,
EV and
okay.
hammer on the brakes. Do
I
it
thought we were
3 or
talking
4
about like some
times.
other
And what
exotic
it'll do
thing.
is it'll squeeze and it'll blow all the dust off. But
Gotcha.
I mean, even specifically for your gas vehicles.
Yeah.
So our gas vehicles are having an issue is now because they're sitting, the gas in it,
Right.
if you're not using a fuel stabilizer, is
Yep.
starting to get clumpy. Or if your brakes aren't moving, they're starting to pit and rust. So when you move your gas
Yeah.
vehicle, get it to 60, keep the foot on the gas, start hitting the brake, and let the brakes bleed out, or else your brakes pit and you end up getting like $1,000 brake bill. And you're like,
Yeah.
I've only
Just
got
don't do that when
20,000
someone's close
kilometers.
behind you. They think they're getting brake checked.
That's right.
So it's sort of like the opposite of the Italian tune-up in a way too. So
Yes. Yeah. 100%.
is that problematic nowadays? I'm not sure. We should check our offendometer.
Yeah.
So, um,
Safe.
and like we're fortunate to be in the position where we can have two cars, and I think that is the solution for folks. If you are a two-car family, you can dip in and save a whole lot of money by getting one of the lower range EVs, even one that's a few years old. If it's got, always get the battery state of health checked out, see how long
Mhm.
the warranty is on that, and that's the perfect way to test the EV waters and use it for your city driving. Like
Mhm.
it's remarkable, and I think that perspective will really unlock that option for a lot of folks if they're in the position to have that. If you've got two cars and you're looking to replace one anyway,
Yep.
consider one of the lower end EVs, or even a secondhand one
Yep.
that you could use as your city driver and save the gas one for your road trips. Yeah, I think most people would be surprised how seldom they actually need the gas one, because
Yep.
a lot of people still have that range anxiety too, right? So
Absolutely.
and then
Most of the time it's unbounded.
yeah, and it's like,
Yeah.
and as the longer range ones eventually come down in price, and we'll get there eventually.
Absolutely.
So, with that in mind, going to the opposite extreme, there's more to the EV world than just Teslas, believe it or not. And we mentioned there's a lot of other car makers getting in there. Finally, BMW is launching their atrocities. They've ruined the grills on, don't even get me
Okay.
started.
Easy.
Any Audi
Easy.
e-trons are looking okay.
Yeah, they do look good.
Volkswagen's got their e-Golfs. Of course, the Mach-E is fantastic.
Yeah.
But if you want to get in really cheap here, Wuling, now here's the classic trademark infringement, has something called the Mini EV,
Right?
which is made in partnership with General Motors, and in China is outselling Tesla's Model 3. I guess that's part of that is the fact that it's only $5,000. But look at this thing. It is so cute. I'm getting a little bit of boxy smart car vibes from this thing. Like, don't expect a lot of cargo room. Let's say you can seat
No,
four
4 people get in
in a
there, but
pinch,
it's
but
yeah,
they can't get out though. They're
it's
trapped.
3 meters long. Yeah. It's literally less than 3 meters long. That thing is tiny. It's like 9 feet. It's so little.
Yeah.
Goes a whopping
And
like 100 kilometers, maybe 27 horsepower. This thing's a glorified moped.
in the articles mentions it'd be perfect for Mario Kart, but in some cities, especially towns where, like, you think European cities where they
Mhm.
have very small roads in the cities, and you see people are parked up onto the sidewalks and whatnot. This sort of vehicle is perfect, and so I'm not sure when they're going to be making it to Europe, but they're taking China by storm,
Yep.
and I think it should be interesting. Again, diversity is our strength, Ged. And this
I
is
feel like Gray is going to look at this and get so pumped. I feel like this has Gray Williams
oh,
written
he's in the bag
all
for
over
Rivian.
it. Yeah.
This looks like someone took a Rivian and put it in a trash compactor and made it into a little.
This has Gray written all over it. He's going to be out there in that pastel mini EV doing about 48 kilometers an hour, hoping to stay on the road.
His ears are burning right now, I'm sure.
Yeah, 100%. He's
all right,
listening.
So we move from that, the mini trademark infringement EV from China in conjunction with GM, to Tata, which is an Indian car manufacturer. They have something. They have an EV called the Avinya, which I don't think it is. It's still concept at the moment, but it looks pretty similar to some other things we've seen. The new Toyota, the BR something. It's got a terrible name. Very similar shape to that. I mean, I don't know what they got 23s on this though. Like those rims are ridiculous here. But one of the things that stood out to me with this design that kind of appealed to me is that one of its key features is it does not have a giant screen. Because that's one of my pet peeves when it comes to a lot of these EVs, is like, especially the Teslas of the extreme version of this, is they're throwing everything, all the controls into these screens, and I miss my good old fashioned, hands-on controls for knobs, switches, stuff like that. So there's parts now where you have to you need the to use the screen to activate your emergency brake or change your gears in some cases. Like, what is even happening? Like, we've got all these fingers for reasons because we want to grab gear shifts, right?
Yeah.
Like you see, like even a lot of newer EVs now, they have knobs for changing your drive mode and whatnot. Like, I mean, at the worst, like put it on the tree, right? Like there's the 4 on the floor, 3 on the tree. Like, and maybe that's just my old age talking there, but just that the ability to feel like you're really changing a gear instead of just like operating a computer. Thoughts?
Yeah. This is definitely the extreme. I had the absolute privilege of driving a Taycan Turbo a week or so ago, which is probably $250,000 Canadian.
And that's Porsche, from Porsche.
Porsche. Yeah. A really good friend of mine is the sales manager at Porsche. And they've done a really good job still making it look like a car and having buttons and having knobs, but also having that technology. Mm-hmm. I love what these guys are doing because, you mentioned a few minutes ago that everything's starting to look the same. The aerodynamics are all the same. You get in, they got 42-inch screens up front. You can't see anything. You're trying to tap a screen while steer the car.
Come on.
Well, if you look, if BMW just launched the new i7,
the whole dash.
Back, fair enough. The back seat has a 32 to 34-inch monitor. Up top, the driver can't even see out back anymore. Wow. No joke. You should look it up. It's crazy. But I like the fact that these guys are doing something different. Mm-hmm. And I hope, it says in the article that we all hope they go through with it. And I agree. I really hope that they do because it's different. You don't need the screen to drive. The knobs be great. Yeah, that thing is absolutely insane. 0 to 60 in like 2.8 seconds.
And was it the Turbo S that I've got here, or was it just the Taycan Turbo?
Turbo S.
Okay, nice. And so were you driving it or were you a passenger?
I was driving it.
And?
I mean, it's the most incredible thing that I've ever experienced in my life from a driving perspective. Porsche even allows you to decide how you want the electric motor to sound in the cabin. Wow. So you can have it have modes of, what an engine might sound like. If you have like the whooshing sound, which is the one I kept it on. I did drive it in Sport Plus temporarily. Mm-hmm. I mean, it is the most well-balanced work of art I've ever had the pleasure of being behind the wheel of. And it goes 475 kilometers on charge.
Not too shabby. And it can be yours for only $217,800. Is that Canadian? Yeah, that's Canada. That's Canadian pricing.
And but that's just where it starts. The one I drove, I think, was 2020, and it was $200,000 still.
Okay. Yikes. Better save those pennies. Gotta get those YouTube views going.
But yeah, so Tata, I like that they're doing something different. I like that they're going a bit of a different route, and I hope that they kind of stick with that design concept.
I agree. So, my question for you is, Ged, is your next car going to be an EV?
The next car purchased in our household will be an EV. Whether it is... Sorry, go ahead.
No, well, what's it going to be? What's it going to... what are you looking for in an EV?
So, my wife drives an SUV. I drive a car. So it will either be something like a Model Y, the Q4s are coming out, the
Audi.
iX is coming out from BMW
Mm-hmm.
with the new slowly growing on me grill. There's a lot of
Don't even get
awesome
me started.
options out there.
Uh-huh.
Or she will keep the Audi Q3 she's in, and then
Mm-hmm.
I will go into something like a Tesla. I would actually love to drive the real Mini, not the fake one. I
Yeah,
would
yeah.
actually really like to drive the real Mini EV, but now that we have the puppy, I have a niece who just turned a year old. I tried to pick the dog out of the back of the Mini in the fall, and I'm like, I'm way too old to do this. I can't. I need something that has 4 doors.
How heavy is this puppy?
Seriously, gotta stop feeding them.
Oh, my
Well, just
back.
like the angles, like it's
Yeah.
so small getting into the back of a Mini, right? So I do really enjoy the Model 3. I realize that makes me the biggest EV sellout in the world. They make a very, very cool product. I don't love the massive screen, but
Mhm.
they do what they do really well. The Hyundai Ioniq 5 is maybe the coolest looking SUV I
Yeah.
have ever seen. You can get that thing jammed out with all-wheel drive for 63 grand, which is quite good. The other one that I find sneaky attractive is the Volvo XC40 Recharge.
Mhm.
The new Volvo all electric stuff I find really, really cool looking, and it looks like a normal vehicle. Inside, you look at it, it looks like a normal car.
So this is the Volvo proper, not the Polestar stuff, correct? Even though they have
Correct.
similar heritage.
Correct. Yeah. Yeah. If you're out there, if you're poking in the background, you can bring it up. It is just a really cool looking, normal looking SUV. Gets just just gets great ratings.
And so, what would you say is your number one priority when shopping for an EV? Just the top of the very top of your list.
I hate to say it, it's gonna be range.
Range, yeah,
And
fair
I'm not
enough.
necessarily saying it has to have the most range,
Yeah,
but
just
it'll have to suit the need of the vehicle. So if
yeah,
it's if it's one that I'm gonna drive, range isn't such a big deal, but it'll have to be appropriate based on that we'd still have the SUV. But
gotcha.
yeah, our next purchase of a vehicle will definitely be an EV.
I think we've set a new record, Ged. 43 minutes in, we've finally finished our follow up.
Woo!
So now we're just going to gallop through the rest of our stories. Now,
Okay,
this next
do it.
set of stories is really Gray Williams material, so we might get his input next week on this. But
Mhm.
there's a couple of stories related to Bored Ape Yacht Club. So for those not familiar with Bored Ape Yacht Club, it was a series of NFTs or non-fungible tokens, which are in this case pieces of digital art that were offered for sale on I think it was on OpenSea, which is one of the NFC marketplaces out there, and they just took off. They're kind of like the latest generation of crypto kitties, crypto punks, which were several years ago. Those are two of the OG types of NFTs out there. Then we've covered on this show stories about Beeple, a longtime artist who had been grinding away for years, who released a piece that sold for $69 million on auction. Now we've got these Bored Apes, which the floor price for some of them now is in the tens of thousands of dollars, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars, because they make these limited sets. They tend to be they have a number of characteristics and they're kind of algorithmically recombined, so you can get apes with like sailor hats or with like other kinds of gear and attire and glasses with or without cigarettes, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, just like the crypto punks of yore. And I remember when I first heard about that, oh, those look ugly. Is that ever going to? And they caught on like crazy. As soon as you get a couple of big influencers on there, crypto influencers, and the people who are paying these prices to get in the gate, because when they went on for sale, they were a fraction of the price, a few hundred or a couple of grand at best. But of course, the demand goes up, the prices get driven up, and a lot of these people, they're not spending real money. They're spending money that they made in the crypto market from having been in early, whether they made it on Ethereum or Bitcoin or one of the other altcoins out there.
Mhm.
So anyway, so this has been a real phenomenon for the last year or so. But just in the last week, $3 million worth of Bored Ape Yacht Club NFTs were stolen thanks to a hack. Now, uh, people were freaking out that maybe that there was some fundamental insecurity to the blockchain. I think they were forged on the Ethereum blockchain, which is a programmable smart contract blockchain and a currency in itself. But as it turns out, the weakest link was Instagram. Somehow their Instagram account got hacked and made people think that there was a new drop coming and getting people to share their private wallet details. And next thing you know, your Bored Apes are going bye-bye. So just be very careful out there.
I feel like I just listened to the digital grown-up male version of Barbie collecting. Like the way you told this story, all I could think about was like the previous generation who would like collect Barbies in packages. And I know that's dating myself, but you literally just described the grown-up rich male boredom version of collecting Barbies or Royal Daltons.
Or Beanie Babies.
Or I was gonna say Beanie Babies. Yeah, like what in the actual like I don't know, man.
Well, I think it's pretty well established that people seem to have this ingrained desire to collect things. We seem to spend the first half of our lives accumulating stuff and the second half of our lives getting rid of stuff and decluttering and doing the whole KonMari thing.
Buy cars like the rest of us. At least you can do something with it.
Now, when I was a kid, I used to collect bottle caps, license plates, comic books, hockey cards,
baseball cards.
Yeah. And then when I hit grade 7, I decided, you know what? I'm growing up now. I don't want to collect that stuff anymore. And I got rid of I hung onto my comic books. And of course, got rid of them 20 years later, gave them to my brother-in-law. I think they're in his attic, the ones that didn't get chewed by rats. So in high school, I got into collecting music, and now, crates and crates and crates of records later and 1,500 CDs later, and don't even get me started.
Love vinyl.
But that's the thing, is like people buy music electronically. Like they either streaming or they're buying downloads from like iTunes Store or Google Play Store or Bandcamp. Now with these NFTs, the whole idea is that they can be limited editions, right? So think of it like a certificate of authenticity. So not only do you have for lack of a better analogy, a Gretzky rookie card, but let's say it's an authenticated, maybe even signed Gretzky rookie card. And so whoever is minting the NFT, they've said, okay, only this many are available. And you're like for the first edition, at least, because you could always do additional editions. And there's that prestige that becomes part of that. So there's this whole prestige economy that's going on online where people are posting are using their NFTs, such as a Bored Ape or CryptoKitty or CryptoPunk, as their avatar on social platforms, such as Twitter.
Big flex.
Well, that's right. I mean, it may sound crazy to like normal people.
Yes, it does. Yeah, I'm the normal person. This sounds ridiculous.
Now, the other side, we talk about sports trading cards. Of course, NBA Top Shots, which I believe also launched last year, they were issuing NFTs on imagery and also video clips of, say, like the best slam dunk from your favorite NBAer. And again, the prestige in owning that, knowing that that is a limited supply from this official source. Now, I say official source, that's important because, of course, there's countless NFT scams that have gone on where people are you're just taking anyone else's intellectual property and claiming to be, and minting limited editions, claiming the original. So a lot of due diligence is required in this space. Let's put it that way. But if you, follow but again, people can't afford real estate anymore. So you don't have a place to put your collectibles. So you might as well keep them in your digital wallet. It's the new reality. We're going to be living in the metaverse, at least the youngs.
I hate to admit it. You're not wrong, man. And the point you make
all I wanted to hear.
Is very, very, very legitimate. It's still weird to a normal person. And by normal, I mean just the uninformed.
And that's just part of the story. People have talking about NFTs for things like access, additional benefits for concert goers, bands building relationships with their fans and so on.
That's cool.
There's a whole lot of other stuff that we have touched on in the past that we don't want to.
I'll buy the Taylor Swift NFT, no problem.
Now, that's what. Big influencers, big celebrities, artists are going to be doing more and more of that. Just you wait. And just wait till Star Wars gets in, like Disney. There is all sorts of stuff that people are going to, it's money talks, right? So just like the people who would buy the lenticular versions of, the lenticular cases of a Blu-ray or the steel books of Blu-rays just to have, right?
Still do.
So it's the same kind of impulse, but now it's
Yep.
just digital, not taking up space in your
Yeah.
your 400 square foot studio apartment that you can't fit anything in anymore. So
Yeah, I'm still guilty of that. I literally ordered the US Harry Potter Hogwarts Express like 20th anniversary and had it like imported from the US. I have a review like half done on it. It's so cool and so nerdy, and it takes up way too much room on my movie shelf. But I had to have it. Yeah.
because you need therapy. That's okay.
Because I
It's
want it. Yeah. 100%.
we look
But there's
forward
no
to
ape smoking cigarettes
no.
on my phone, so I guess I'm just not cool.
Well, we look forward to your review. So,
Oh,
second up in Bored Ape Yacht Club news this week, not just one
yeah.
story, but two. Get apparently, Bored Ape Yacht Club also released a new collection of legitimate NFTs on Saturday.
Okay.
But because there was so much demand, it literally broke the brain of the Ethereum blockchain, which Ethereum is kind of like Bitcoin has its own blockchain. It's its own basically currency or security, whatever you want to call it, but it is programmable. And that's what a lot of NFTs exist on. There's alternatives like Solana. And I know it sounds like I'm talking word salad at this point,
Yeah.
but one of the key things from doing any crypto transaction, including buying and selling of NFTs, is there's something called gas fees. So if you wanted to send Bitcoin or Ether on the Ethereum blockchain to someone, you'd have to pay gas fees, and they can range from a few cents to a few dollars. But what was happening, because there was so much network demand on the Ethereum blockchain, is people were ending up having to pay, they'd be paying $400, $500 US for some NFT and spending a couple of grand in gas fees, which enable the transactions on the network, right?
Price of gas is going up, right?
Exactly. So this gas is just basically the feed that goes to people who are running Ethereum mining equipment and all this kind of stuff on the network. And so part of this in this Bored Ape Yacht Club was a land sale. So they're building their own kind of metaverse there. It says here, one punter spent $44,000 on gas fees to buy 2 plots of land, which was 4 times the amount spent on the NFTs themselves. So you better hope that virtual land appreciates enough to make your investment worthwhile. Because
hold on. I just want to make sure I understand this correctly. People are now selling digital plots of land.
Oh yeah,
in the cloud,
and these aren't the only
that doesn't
guys.
exist.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So one day you can talk to a girl online when you're online dating and be like, hey, just so you know, sweetheart, if all this goes well, we can go back to my 3 acres of land I have on the blockchain. And we can sit there with our VR glasses on and
strap on your Oculus. Yeah.
Strap on our Oculus. I got a nice plot of land. It overlooks a digital sea. Got a prime piece of real estate. It's like Ready Player One is just coming to life.
Yeah. Try explaining it to your grandparents.
Try explaining it to I don't understand it.
So here's another case of $100 transaction with $1,800 US in gas fees. That's how mental the network was going, because it's just supply and demand. It was with the network traffic dries up. It's kind of like surge pricing on Uber, right? The more demand there is at a given time, prices go up. So yeah. So anyway, there are land sales happening. There's Upland is another one. There's something else that ends in land is another one. It's escaping my mind at the moment. So that's the problem. So you've got all these different platforms that are launching their own digital real estate. It's like, well, which one do you own? Like, if you own the CN Tower, do you want to own it like in all of these metaverses or blockchains or what have you? And sometimes it's just like totally fabricated and made up land. Like, I don't even know, but I think there's a lot of people are going to be losing a lot of money as the supply kind of dries up. But the problem is there's the dream, because a lot of people made a lot of money as well, right? But it's usually those on the inside who are in those secret Telegram groups and Discord servers and whatnot who get the word. Folks like Gray are in pretty deep on some communities and are able to act quickly enough. But for regular folks,
I feel bad. I'm going to end up buying a land in like the digital version of Surrey or something like that.
Hey, whoa, Nelly! I
was going to say Scarborough, but I'm in Ontario and no one really understand what that meant.
That's quite all right.
Yeah.
Not only did my wife grow up in Surrey, BC, but for the most part, she was born in Surrey, England. So double Surrey.
And I was born in Surrey, BC, so I'm totally allowed to make that joke. Yes.
I did not know that.
Yes, you did.
Wow. So now that's some additional information for for doxing you. Thanks for your
That's
security
it.
questions. We'll get to your bank account.
Perfect.
Yeah, so we'll move on from bored
Okay.
apes to some other stuff here, so we don't. Shall we get into entertainment now? What do you think? Are you ready for some entertainment, Ged?
I love it.
All right.
Let's do it.
So, top 5 new TV shows premiering in May, including Star Wars and Star Trek series. So,
Mhm.
Star Trek Strange New Worlds
Yep.
featuring Anson Mount as Captain Pike
Yep.
and others, some returning characters from Star Trek Discovery who first made their appearance in Star Trek Discovery, such
Love
as
it.
Spock and Number One, and then some brand new characters as well. Nurse Chapel has been recast from the late '60s now to the whatever. I guess we're in the 2020s now.
Mhm.
Star Wars. We've got Obi-Wan
Oh
Kenobi
my goodness.
debuting, and some others. So, which of the May series is getting you most excited, Ged?
There are 2 on there and one
Mhm.
that is not, and, we were saying before we went on that there's one that's not on this that is I can't even fathom the fact that this is not on the list, and maybe because it's not a brand new series, it's a
Also, it's
new
Yahoo News,
season.
so
Well, that's fair. Yeah, yeah, fair.
so a
Uh,
new season of an existing series. Okay, do
yeah.
tell.
So, I obviously, Obi-Wan Kenobi, I mean, this is
Mhm.
the first time you've seen a major character really recast in a Disney series. I mean, you had Mandalorian, who was nobody and became incredible. You had the Book
Mhm.
of Boba Fett, which, in my opinion, was a great passage
Yep.
series. You know, it opened up the door to a lot of other characters. Andor's in production, but this is huge. Like every single Star Wars nerd in the world is sweating because the same thing is going through everyone's mind. Like, just please don't screw this up. And with
Yep.
Favreau and Filoni not being heavily involved in this project because they were doing other things,
Oh.
it made it even more so. But it looks, I mean, so far it looks absolutely amazing. I forget who is behind it, but I loved what they had done. So they had done things, and of course, I'm blanking on a chunk of this. I did a lot of the stuff with the Rogue Leader a little while ago, but they didn't have a huge repertoire of stuff.
Mhm.
But the stuff that they had been involved in was really good at telling stories. So I'm super excited for Obi-Wan. It cannot come fast enough.
Mhm.
Star Trek obviously is going to be fantastic, and Stranger Things season 4 is the thing that
Right.
is not on here
Right.
that drops at the end of May. That uh, I'm embarrassed to tell you how excited I am for that. I mean, I being a baby of the 80s, I am infatuated with Stranger Things and all the silly little storylines that go with it.
We should have had you on a couple weeks ago and we talked about it.
Oh man. What about you? What are you most excited about? Like some of the stuff I don't know a lot about.
Yeah, I haven't heard of Candy, about a 1980 housewife and mother who did everything right. Time Traveler's Wife, I had heard about. We had the movie, The Time
Yeah.
Traveler's Wife, I believe it was Eric Bana on that, and that was probably, 15 years ago now?
Yeah.
And so this is a new TV series, The Staircase, starring, Colin Firth,
I like him too. I'm
looks
a big Colin Firth
interesting.
fan.
Tony
Yep.
Collette is great too, Muriel.
Yep.
I would say of these 5, probably Strange New Worlds because Anson Mount was so great. I also listened to his podcast, which is always interesting. He does with another fellow, but Obi-Wan Kenobi is a close second for sure. I think it's a similar sort of phenomenon with the Star Trek series as with the Star Wars one, but it's kind of in reverse. There are a lot of Star Trek fans who have been somewhat displeased with the number of Star Trek series to date. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm mixed. Star Trek Discovery, I think, started strong first couple of seasons and has had a number of missteps. They spent a lot of time talking about feelings. I like the serialized aspect of it, but some of the season 3, the cause of the burn, like, oh man.
Yeah, it's funny
Um,
because I'm not on season 3. I
oh
stopped
boy.
it in season 2. So to me, Star Trek Discovery is amazing so far. I just haven't continued with it.
And different strokes for different folks. I know some folks
Yep.
are still really on board. I mean, I'm still watching it because
Yep.
the the all the money's up on the screen, right? The
Yeah.
effects are amazing, the
Yeah.
production design, even the sound design when it goes to
Yeah.
black alert and does use the spore drop. I love that
Yeah.
stuff, but there's some other things that are just so frustrating.
But
Some of the
Picard's been
choices they
good.
make with the writing. Picard, I started off liking season 2 better than season 1. Season 1 was okay. Season 2
Mhm.
started off strong in my
Yep.
mind. it's kind of, I think, kind of stumbled a little bit.
Fair.
It's in some ways it's kind of like Star Trek 4 Voyage Home.
Okay.
And but the way it's wrapping up is kind of intriguing too, with what the future of the, are you up to date on it?
On
Picard?
Picard, no.
Oh,
I think
okay.
I'm
So
3 episodes into the 2nd season.
okay, so just there's some interesting developments to
Okay.
happen to see where they go. And then Lower Decks, which I think is great, the animated series. I
Yep.
haven't watched what's the other one, the animated one, the other animated one that Gray has mentioned in the Star Trek Prodigy. I have not yet seen that at all. Anyhow, all that
Yes.
being said,
Yeah.
there's, let's call them mixed reviews on those. But a lot of people who have had the
Fair.
most problems with Discovery, and to a certain extent Picard, are still excited about Strange New Worlds, because they had a taste of Pike and some of the supporting cast, including Number One and Spock,
Yep.
in Discovery, and that was arguably some of the strongest Discovery storylines. And what
Yep.
what Alex Kurtzman, one of the executive producers, has said is that they're going back to more of a traditional episodic approach to Star Trek, kind of like it was back in the good old days, not so much the serialized. Now, I actually enjoy the serialized stuff, frankly, as opposed to the Monster of the Week. We saw that phenomenon with X-Files as well. We had
Yep.
these standalone episodes, and then we also had the conspiracy episodes that went over the course of the entire season or even more. I kind of like the latter, but it sounds like they're going to be doing a bit of a blend here, and well, we'll see. Well, we'll see.
So
It looks, the teaser, which we've showed a couple weeks ago, looks great. But
yeah.
again, it's just
Yeah,
like
it
a
does.
lot of Trek nerds are like, don't screw it up, don't screw it up, don't screw it up. Whereas a lot of the Star Wars folks are like, we've had a lot of home runs. I mean, aside from some of the problem, the movies were a little,
Yeah.
hot
No,
and
but
cold,
series
but
wise, yeah.
the Star Wars TV stuff has been pretty darn solid.
Yeah. So if you had to pick either the Time Traveler's Wife, the Staircase, or Candy of one you were going to give a try, which one
I,
would you pick?
I would probably say, not having seen the movie, but just knowing that it feels like the most sci-fi of them all, and I'm a one-trick pony, I would probably go with Time Traveler's Wife.
So would I, because I
Yeah.
love the main character. She was from Game of Thrones. She was awesome. So yeah.
Oh yeah,
you and I agree.
which actress was that? Oh yeah,
Rose Leslie.
right.
Yeah.
No, good call on that one for sure. Now, again, if someone put a gun to your head and
Yep.
said, Star Wars or Star Trek?
Star Wars.
You can only have one. Okay, there we go.
It's not even close.
Wow. Okay.
I like Star Trek.
Yeah.
Tomorrow is a magnificent day for me. Being
May the 4th.
Yeah. Yeah. Like I enjoy Star Trek. I'm an unhealthy Star Wars fan.
Gotcha.
So
Now
to me, it's not.
Let's take a quick opportunity to plug Rogue Leader, because you've appeared on that YouTube channel a number of times. Can you tell us a little bit about who's behind that? Because he's appeared in some of your videos as well, and what his shtick is.
So Rogue Leader is a really good friend of mine, Tyler, and he is a walking and moving encyclopedia of Star Wars. I mean, his knowledge base goes down to series of starships and where they appeared. His knowledge of like KOTOR, Knights of the Old Republic, and the alternate universe is incredible. So a couple of years ago, obviously, like the rest of us, when I started Fabulous Flicks, I did it just to kind of have a fun project and kind of learn a new skill set. He did the same, but then really started in a good way going after ship. He kind of set a goal for himself that he wanted to become monetizable. I think now he's got 6,000 or 7,000 subscribers. He does monetize, but it's interesting because what he enjoys doing the most is something that gets him the least amount of views. And I really hope he's not watching, or else he's probably going to shoot me for saying this. But like he loves like the collab stuff, the stuff that him and I talk about, the reviews of the episodes. Him and I really enjoy the banter because my knowledge is good, but it fails in comparison to him. Like he's crazy good. But what he does really well on are things like shorts. Some of his highest viewed videos, like they're way up there. And he gets into these shorts and he loves doing the edits. And he did one that blew up a while ago, and it was basically Obi-Wan calling out to all the Jedis when Order 66 happened. And that thing's got to have, I mean, if I had to guess, it's got to be touching 7 figures now for views. Like it is way up there. I had the pleasure of starting the construction in his home theater. So if on my channel, if you see
Oh,
kind of
well,
part
we'll
one, part
save
two,
that.
part
We'll get to
three.
that at the end.
Oh, okay, fair
Yeah,
enough.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So
Just
anyway,
get Star
so
Wars for now.
that is his thing, and
Mhm.
yeah, he's a really good guy. He's got a corporate job, and he's just super passionate. I love joining him for stuff.
Awesome. Well, we look forward to seeing more there. I'm a subscriber myself, and it's funny though because I rarely watch shorts on YouTube. My YouTube dial is mostly slightly longer form stuff, usually from 5 minutes up to like an hour and a half,
Yeah.
sort of thing. Because we watch on our TV using our Apple TV box.
Yep.
So I have to confess, I don't. I tend to watch more of his like when he's doing the live streams and reaction videos and stuff like that, just
Yeah.
to get
I
his
don't
takes
watch
on
his
stuff.
shorts either. Don't feel bad.
And of course, we always watch when you're on there doing a collab with him too. We
I
got
appreciate
to give
that. Thank you.
the thumbs up there too. So that's
Yeah.
Rogue Leader, and we'll include a
Yeah.
link to that in the show notes. But speaking of Star Wars Day, so coming to Disney Plus, here's this clickbait article on MSN, from Newsweek originally. All the content coming to Disney Plus for Star Wars Day. Well, you know what new content is coming to Disney Plus on Star Wars Day? Basically, Sweet FA.
Yeah.
I think.
Nothing.
And the one thing is like there's a behind the scenes on it's like on Book of Boba Fett or something like that.
If it's the same one they did for Mandalorian, it's
Mhm.
incredible. They did a really cool thing for
Yeah,
behind the
it's
scenes on
Disney
Mandalorian. It
Gallery
was
special centered on Book of
yeah.
Boba Fett. That's the one new thing for Star Wars Day. But
Mhm.
so yeah, why don't you tell us about the Mandalorian one? What is a gallery special?
Well, it was really cool because they looked at, they talked to a lot of the directors that took part in it. They went through a lot of the technology, and it was really just how they brought that character to life. But seeing, like for the Mandalorian, because it was a few episodes, seeing the directors all sit around a table and talk and go over ideas, and even things like their past with Star Wars and how they're connected to the brand, like that to me was the most engaging part. So I look forward to watching the gallery part of Boba Fett, because I think that his story, and I of course I'm drawing a blank on the name of the character of Boba Fett, like the actual actor, like
Mhm.
that character was built up so high in Star Wars lore, and he had the most uneventful death, or supposed death,
Yeah,
in Star
Sarlacc
Wars
pit.
history. Yeah, in the Sarlacc pit.
Spoiler alert.
Yeah. And to me, it's going to be really interesting if they get those group of people around a table together, and John Favreau's there, and
Yeah.
Filoni's there, and all these directors, and they're talking about how they were drawn to it. I mean, that to me, like you, I enjoy the commentary. I don't love the short stuff so much. Like, I want to sit around and hear you guys talk about what get them excited. So I loved it. And if you haven't watched the Mandalorian one, it is so cool what they did from a technology standpoint, and how they built those backgrounds rather than using
Oh, the
a
giant
traditional
screens.
green screen.
Yeah.
Like literally just like you would need to own every lazy gorilla ape smoking cigarettes to be, or monkey sleeping ape, or whatever
Just
it's
make it up.
called,
We're just
on the
remixing
rock
them now.
on
Yeah,
the
we'll make
rock
our own.
chain, or I don't know. You'd need to own like Boardwalk and Park Place in the cloud real
There we
estate. Like,
go.
I don't know, man. But like
How about Kamchatka and Irkutsk?
yeah, but like they spared no expense, and seeing Favreau talk about how they brought that to life in the Mandalorian one was so neat. I
Yeah.
fully recommend, if you are a nerd at all, watch it. Even if you're not a huge Star Wars nerd, the
Yeah.
implications of this across other platforms, massive.
I think I did watch the Mandalorian one because the game changer for the reducing the production costs and still having high quality productions were those gigantic screens. And they just,
Yeah,
instead of using green screens or blue screens, they have those in the background. It makes the actors feel like they're actually in those environments. And they still
yep,
have a lot of the foreground practical sets as well too.
yep,
But just being able to crank out high quality stuff and make, they don't have to go to freaking Tunisia to
yep.
shoot at any
It's
desert scenes
incredible.
anymore.
Yeah,
So yeah, that's so, and that's only going to get better and better. And they can use that for Boba Fett, use that for Obi-Wan Kenobi and the
oh
like.
my
So that is
goodness,
pretty
Obi-Wan.
exciting. Yeah. Well, that's why didn't they release that on May 4th? Come on.
So because the 25th of May is the anniversary, it's an anniversary of something to do with Obi-Wan. So
Okay.
there's a specific reason it's on the
Sure.
25th.
Sure. This is like,
Although most of us would agree that that was dumb. Should have launched it
Yeah,
tomorrow.
because everyone knows May the 4th, thanks to
Everyone
internet
knows May
memes,
the
right?
4th. You know what May the
Yeah,
25th is? Oh, wait, who cares?
yeah. May the 25th be with you.
Yeah.
Doesn't roll off the tongue so
No,
well.
no.
All right. Speaking of Star Wars, there's more ways you can celebrate May the 4th, which is tomorrow, Wednesday. 4 Star Wars games you can play right now, including Star Wars Squadrons, Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order, and Star Wars Battlefront 2, and Star Wars Episode 1 Racer. Now, I have to admit, I don't think I've played any of these, but Ged, you must have played at least one, if not more. Which
Yes,
of
sir.
these, which ones have you played, and which ones would you say is your favorite of the ones you have played?
None of these are my favorite of the Star Wars games that I've played.
Of these, of these 4, which
okay,
would
no
you say
problem.
is your
My
favorite?
favorite easily is Fallen Order.
Okay.
It was an incredible third-person game. And it's funny because the actor they used to play the main character in this was in Gotham, which was really cool as Joker. And I really, really liked him as an actor. This follows an incredible story as the Jedi are being eradicated. And what I love about this is they actually used some of the things that came out in this game. They turned it into canon. They started using things like Force abilities. So Force abilities in the last 3 movies, part of that came from this game. So it was fun.
So game stuff has entered the Star Wars canon, is what you're saying.
Correct. Yeah.
Wow.
So where Rey is able to grab something and recall that memory, that is from the game. They directly pulled that from the game itself. So it was a ton of fun. After that, Star Wars Squadrons, I just found it really, really repetitive. I still have it downstairs. I've put maybe a couple hours into it, but I mean, there's only so much you can do. The concept is really cool because you get to fly a TIE fighter. And then after 3 hours, you're like, okay, all I do is fly a TIE fighter and do the same thing. And then after that, and it's not on here, which makes no sense to me, the new Lego Star Wars game that has come out for PS5 and Xbox. It's the Skywalker Saga. And you can literally play through all 9 movies as Lego characters. It's 2-player. My wife and I play it. You run around, you collect coin, you bash things up to collect more coin. It is hours of fun. It is easily the best Star Wars game out there.
I think Will and his wife I think they're fans of the Star Wars Lego games. And it's amazing. The whole Lego has brilliantly insinuated themselves into all sorts of IP in the gaming realm. You've got Harry Potter Lego games. Like, I think
Jurassic Park.
Jurassic Park Lego games.
Marvel, DC.
Yeah, there's so much. And
the Avengers games are great.
And they're more playful. Like, for people who aren't hardcore, like, first person shooter type folks, like they tend to be more family friendly and arcadey in terms of their physics and their dynamics. Like, they're easy to pick up. So I think that's remarkable. So you would say, now, if you, of all the Star Wars games that exist, which would you say is your favorite one? Not limited to this list here.
I hate to say it. It would be Lego Star Wars. However, I have heard that KOTOR, Knights of the Old Republic, which is on an old system, is bar none the best. I never had the opportunity to play it. And I mean, a lot of Star Wars lore wants to see a series of movie based in KOTOR. So Knights of the Old Republic was, basically Coruscant in its prime, where the, ruled with the balanced mind and like things were at its height and the politics around that. There's a lot of requests for stuff like that. But yeah, other than that, Fallen Order was a blast. So much fun.
And refresh me, what happens in Fallen Order?
So in Fallen Order, he is
who's he?
Trying the main character who, of course, it's late, so I actually don't remember. Finds out that he has Jedi abilities, is trying to hide it. It then gets to a point where he cannot, and he's trying to link up with what's left of the Resistance. And then he goes on a bunch of quests with them. The hand-to-hand combat is absolutely fantastic. And you end up facing off against Vader at the end, which is so cool. Yeah.
Now, I have to say that my favorite, I would say two favorites, and this is more a function of my lack of gaming experience, being a casual gamer
Hmm.
for sure, is that on console. Get
Hmm.
ready for it.
I'm ready.
I'm gonna say this one here: Star Wars: Empire Strikes Back for the Atari 2600.
Nice.
Feast your eyes on this graphical masterpiece. It almost looks, it's got a little bit like of Defender vibes, but
Yep.
like you gotta hit the now. You're the Star Wars expert. I've always called them AT-ATs, but then I've heard people call them AT-ATs.
I've heard them called both. I call them
Okay.
AATATs because there's ATSTs, like there's a bunch of different
Okay.
ones. But I don't think AT-AT is wrong.
Right. It's just like it's two syllables versus four, and I'm all about
Yeah.
economy of syllables. But look at this thing on the Atari at the time on the Atari 2600. It was great gameplay. It was exciting, and plus for our generation, it was like, oh my goodness, look, it's like Star Wars stuff on the screen. And I believe
So
that was
good.
the first Star Wars game for the Atari 2600 was the second movie in the series. And then,
Hmm.
of course, in the arcade, we had um, an actual Star Wars arcade game from 1983, which had vector graphics. So as opposed to
Yes.
regular bitmap or raster graphics, and it's a little hard to see here because of the contrast, but they had the full. There's a couple of different versions. There's a stand-up version with the with the proper controls, like you're flying a spaceship, like a TIE fighter, or there was a sit-down kind as well, which was even more. It was more like you were in this cockpit,
Yep.
which was tremendous as well, and that was super fun. I said, it's been a lot of quarters in that machine there.
Yeah. And it's funny because if you enjoyed that, you'd probably enjoy Rogue Squadron
All right, duly noted.
because it
Now,
is it is similar to that, right?
what platform is Rogue Squadron on?
Uh,
Right,
Xbox and PlayStation.
not Atari 2600.
I'm not sure it's quite made it there yet. I
Come on,
feel it's gonna get there.
1977 represent.
It's gonna get there right after it gets to NES.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you say Xbox and PlayStation, the latest generation, like the Xbox One
Yeah.
and the PlayStation
Yeah.
5?
Oh no, you can go PlayStation 4,
Okay.
Xbox One, stuff like that.
Gotcha. So if the real sort of the video gaming isn't doesn't work for you, but you still like Lego, there's all sorts of Lego Star Wars that you can enjoy for
Great
May the
segue
4th.
there. Well
A-
done.
And just like we've got, Lego Star Wars games, you can actually build your own Lego Star Wars sets. And this is another classic example of the team ups between the Lego brand and the Star Wars brand. But, so they do the electronic stuff, and now they're doing the real world stuff that you can
Hmm.
step on and shriek. But there
Yes.
are literally dozens of sets ranging from $8 up all the way to hundreds of dollars. We have some good friends. Actually, Jamie Reynolds, a friend of the show, his family, they picked up a couple of the original Millennium Falcon Lego Star Wars sets.
Uh,
And as you probably know, they appreciated in value a fair bit. And
yep.
I think they ended up selling one of them and got hundreds of dollars for it.
Yeah.
So
It's. I mean, and I must confess, like I would love to have the Millennium Falcon or the Death Star. The odd time if I'm in Toronto, I'll go by the Lego store, and sometimes they'll have them set up, and like the 8-year-old in me goes, ooh, I don't know where I'd put it, and I would step
yeah,
on it and not finish it. And my wife would absolutely kill me.
yeah. You're the 8-year-old
Man,
you
do
versus
I
the husband
want
in you.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
you could,
The 8-year-old in me wants to play. Husband in me doesn't want to pick it up.
I fear that you may have missed your opportunity for a fantastic pandemic relationship building project. You could have done it together and gotten buy-in that way.
Lego games. Lego games, red
Oh,
wine, and charcuterie were how we survived the
okay.
pandemic.
So
Yeah.
she's a gamer.
No,
Oh,
she'll only play Lego Star Wars.
okay. Well, that's
That's the
something.
only game. Yep.
My lovely wife Stephanie, as a Valentine's/Easter gift, it kind of fell in between. She got us a PS5. She managed to track one down after months and months. And there's a game by a studio called Pixeljunk that I've been playing on the PS3 for literally 13 years or ish. And there's Monsters 2, which was released on the PS4, but we never had a PS4 because PS4's Blu-ray drive didn't play movies. So I boycotted it. But now we've got a PS5, and maybe someday we'll get a 4K.
Play movies.
Well, it didn't play 4K Blu-rays.
Correct.
Yeah. So the PS4 had a 4K Blu-ray drive, but didn't play 4K Blu-ray movies. And it's like, correct, what are you doing, Sony? So held out for the PS5 just several more years. And there's this game called Monsters 2, which is the sequel, which was a PS4 game, but now we're playing it on the PS5 and we're playing it together. And it's really a great thing.
It's fun when you can play people in their 50s. Fun game with spouses. Yeah, it's a blast.
Yes. Yeah. So now I'm not sure if you have something. Oh yeah. Do you have any actual Star Wars Lego in your possession?
No. I do not own any Lego.
Wow. Oh, any Lego whatsoever?
Zero.
Wow. You are dead inside.
I don't have children, and I don't have the desire to pick them up when I don't finish it.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
No Lego.
It's the attention span. Is that the issue?
That is a very large part of it. That is correct. Yeah.
I still have.
I'm too busy out there slugging tires. My wife's telling me to be more productive, so I have no time for Lego.
I confess, I think I've got some of my original childhood Lego, space Lego, non-branded space, like pre-IP collaboration. So not Star Wars, just the original space Lego, just one little ship. I still have it. Really enjoy
I take that back. I got the special edition Star Wars Lego game for PS5. And in that is one Lego character. I think it's Luke. It's still in the package, but I think I technically now have one piece of Lego.
You are hereby redeemed.
Hereby back alive. Yeah.
All right. So one feature that we did not have last time you appeared, Ged, was a pick of the week or recommendations. And now this is something where we go around to all the participants in Momentous Live and we talk about a recent movie, TV show, book, podcast, YouTube channel, game, gadget. I brought on a chainsaw a few weeks ago because an electric chainsaw, which battery powered, which I was really enjoying. And we had a little bit of on-screen drama because they were not expecting that. Revving up a chainsaw because I'm super cool. So while if you haven't thought of anything yet, I'll go first and let you think of something. And my pick of the week, again, because we've had a bit of a Star Wars theme today, and tomorrow being May the 4th, there's a fascinating documentary. It's the French title is In the Shadow of the Star Wars Kid, and the English title, forgive me 1 second here, is Star Wars Kid: The Rise of the Digital Shadow. And
interesting.
What this is about is that meme from 2003, which went around pre-YouTube, most modern social media. It was pre-Facebook, pre-Twitter, etc. And there was this fellow who was 15 years old, I believe. And as part of some school project, they were experimenting with doing some special effects, and he was having a right old time of it, not having much success. So eventually he just decided to play around and pretend he was lightsabering some stuff, and did that for a couple minutes, and then left the footage on the camcorder, the school camcorder. And then some fellow schoolmates of his found this footage and thought it would be hilarious to upload it to the internet. And then it got amplified, discovered by a few influencers online, one of whom, his name is Andy Bio, who's been running the blog called waxy.org for a couple of decades now. And he was 25 at the time, so still pretty young in his own right. And he thought, oh, this is kind of funny. He shared it out there, and it got, next thing you know, it's picked up by all sorts of media around the world, including the New York Times, including others like in Trois Rivières, where this young fellow was from. And they figure it's gotten between 900 million and 1 billion views since 2003. So just in 19 years. People were doing remixes of it. They were adding their own effects, recontextualizing it, and it really took on a life of its own. Meanwhile, it basically destroyed his life.
Well, fair.
Yeah, because he became the butt of in jokes in person and online and what have you. He like now the unofficial appearances in South Park and in Family Guy, both of which weren't particularly negative per se, because I think both of the creators of both of those series are kind of nerds themselves, at least back in the day. So they kind of got it, but it was an interesting, very early phenomenon of online remix culture where people were just taking this original footage and just making it their own. But this got released without his consent. That's a word we've heard a lot more of in the last, 10 years or so, but it applies as much to online content as well. Like if someone takes your photo or video of you, or you have it of yourselves and it gets released online. We've heard about like revenge porn, for example, where people are sharing, sexy photos of themselves with a partner at the time. And then maybe the relationship goes bad. Next thing you know, said ex-partner is now releasing that stuff online. Like that's without the subject's consent. Like that is not a great look. But this kind of issue has been going on for literally decades now. And this documentary, it's about an hour and 20 minutes. And it's a fascinating look at this early phenomenon and what it did to this young man's life and how, they did take some legal action in some cases, but he had to change schools. There was a whole lot to it. And it's really interesting. And the fellow that I mentioned, Andy Baio, who is the 25-year-old who is partly responsible for the amplification of this viral video. He actually, there's a part in the documentary where they meet. And it's very, very humbling. Like, it's like, if I had known what this would have done to your life, I never would have shared this on my blog. And I think maybe he underestimated the reach of his own blog at the time. And it's that moment, it's like, wow, I found it actually kind of touching. It's the human side of these things, because whenever people are sharing stuff online, maybe it's just getting into an argument with someone on Twitter. Like, it's easy for us to forget there's a human being there. And even when it's someone in a photo or a video too, it's like, because people are behind screens, they kind of get dehumanized. And this documentary is a really good reminder for us that on the other side of the screen, the person on the keyboard, even if they're maybe not the greatest person in the world, but especially if they're just like someone innocently doing something, it's a human being, right?
Yep.
So as a Star Wars aficionado, I knew you'd be aware of Star Wars Kid.
I know of Star Wars Kid, but this is super intriguing. I will definitely watch this. This is very cool.
Well, my work here is done. So what would you say, Ged, is your pick of the week?
My pick of the week isn't deep like yours. I kind of feel bad because
it's
yours
quite
is
all right.
like,
We're happy with
so many
superficial
layers of onions. I was, and this might not even be super new, but it just came across.
Don't hedge. It's okay.
I came across this thing called the Mevo 3-pack this week.
How do you spell that?
MEVO 3-pack.
Okay.
And it is 3 cameras for streaming, podcasting, and reviewing that run simultaneously off one app. There's a video in the third thing. I am mind boggled. Like, I feel like the next thing I'm going to enjoy doing that, ones of twos people will ever watch are things like reviewing things like older 4K transfers. I'm very fascinated right now with older movies and how they transfer. I've watched some pretty cool ones recently, like Bram Stoker's Dracula I picked up. The Harry Potter Hogwarts Express. But I noticed that when I did my Harry Potter one, like, I literally had to move the camera all over the place. This is 3 cameras that run simultaneously. You can record it and decide where you're cutting. You can run everything off one audio out feed, so I can still run mics. And then I can literally send it from there to edit.
Wow. You mean
this thing is awesome.
You mean I don't have to spend like $2,500 per camera to set up in a vain attempt to have a semi-professional set operation? You can spend $1,000 and have 3 high-quality cameras.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. How unbelievably cool is that? Yeah. Like, I literally had to reset it up and angle it so that I could like go through there's a booklet that came with the Harry Potter thing of like original artist drawings. And I'll be honest, it was such a pain. I'm a third of the way through this review in terms of editing. I'm like, I'm done. And it's too bad because I had someone on for one of the first times to do this with me. And she's a walking encyclopedia of Harry Potter, like anything and everything. And now I feel bad because I'm literally less than halfway through this. I'm like, I'm tired of editing this. I'm so over it already. But it's $1,250 Canadian.
Okay.
For the 3-pack. And yeah, they set up and everything runs off this app. You can basically decide when you go, camera 1, 2, 3, export it. You can even edit it right in there if you want to, or you can export it.
So do you have this in your possession yet, Ged?
I do not. And I would love nothing more than to be able to play with it and review it. But unless Fabulous Flicks gets some sort of a grant, I don't think that I will be picking it up anytime soon.
Gotcha. So this is a wish list pick of the week.
This is a wish
put it
list.
that
Yeah.
way.
If I hadn't made the rash decision of going to F1 this weekend in Miami, maybe. But I feel like this weekend's trip is going to ixnay all nerdy ventures for the next little while.
Choices have consequences. What are you going to do?
Absolutely. We are nothing if not accountable. But yeah, I hope that somebody gets to play with this thing, whether it's Gray or someone at Blink. Like, I would love to see some reviews of this thing. This thing blows me away.
Let's see if we can work on Gray to get that. I think he's the one for sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
so
now
definitely my pick.
My question is, do you have to use it with the app, or could you use this without the app? Because my concern when there's ever app related or app dependent gadgets is that what if the app stops being supported, and then you want to go install the app on your newer iPhone with a newer operating system, and it doesn't work, we didn't get updated anymore, and sometimes that takes 5 or 6 years to happen. But that's a concern. Do you know if these can
made
work
by Logitech?
Yeah.
They still support Harmony. They stopped making them 18 months ago. They're still updating that database.
Don't even get me started on Harmony. Are they still updating it? Because I've got
it's still running real
half a dozen of those things.
I still run them. I worked on a project actually over the last weekend, which I did not shoot for my sister and my brother-in-law to be. And I literally made them go on Facebook Marketplace and find a Harmony remote. I tried this One for All one. It was garbage. So literally sitting on my kitchen table, Harmony, it's going back.
Logitech, what are you doing with the Harmony brand? All right. Well, speaking of projects, you have a couple of non-family related projects. One, I'm just going to bring up to shame you, and that is Fabulous Flicks, which is one of our favorite YouTube channels, which in the past has featured a lot of your reviews of movies, upcoming takes on Netflix releases and the like. But you had a series of 3 videos a couple of months ago, and in conjunction with Tyler, Rogue Leader.
That's right.
And they were very different for Fabulous Flicks. Can you tell us a little bit about what people could find in this series of 3 videos?
Sure. I mean, obviously Fabulous Flicks, I enjoy reviewing movie content, but I must admit home audio is easily in my top 3 passions of life. Like, there are 3 things that I am grossly passionate about in life, and home audio is one of them.
Grossly passionate. That's the phrase of the day.
Yeah. Golf, cars, and home audio. And by grossly passionate, I mean I have zero regard for investment, smart financial decisions. If my lovely wife was on here, she could probably roll her eyes and tell you about the times where I jumped online, found something, and bought new front sound stages. And she's like, what are you doing? But I've always wanted to have the opportunity to do a build from the ground up. And I'm now in the phase of life where friends of mine are starting to buy their homes. They're starting to work on these kind of projects. And Tyler, in true Tyler fashion, calls me on Friday, telling me, hey, the drywallers are coming Monday. So his place is up on the, I won't say exactly where it is, obviously for privacy reasons.
We're not,
but it's further away than Barrie.
Okay.
So I had to call my supplier, get a ton of cabling, a bunch of other stuff. I ran there Saturday morning, picked it all up, got up Sunday morning, drove a long ways. And I'm like, I hate you. But I was so excited to do this. So over the years of running home theaters and doing my own system, I've done a lot of things really wrong. So I thought, how cool would it be to be able to bring a series or a couple series? I have one I haven't even started editing yet from London, on things where, hey, if you want to save some money, do this. Here are things you don't want to cheap out on. And I mean, this was probably not done overly well, if I'm being honest. It was my first crack at it. but I loved it because it was very real. It wasn't rehearsed. It was me
Yeah.
kind of speaking from the hip. I mean, it was so much fun to bring it to life.
Rough and ready. I mean, it's the whole Gary Vaynerchuk mantra, just like don't create, document. And this was something
Yeah,
that you were doing anyway, right? So
yeah,
why not
yeah.
document it?
And the
Now,
part with the stop motion was a lot of fun. The time lapse,
mhm.
that was way too much fun to have it.
And that was that in part three?
Part 2, I think.
In
I
part
think
two?
part 2 had the time lapse, where we literally listened to, like,
Oh yeah,
90s
yeah.
and 2000s hip hop, and, yeah, as my
There
wife
it
says,
is.
Tyler watched me do work for it was literally, like, 3 hours of work. But
N-
all of this is funny because this is this part took 3 hours, but
Wow.
measuring and calculating and conversing and planning, like, I had the blueprints 3-4 days before. I was working through them. We were measuring stuff out. Then you got to double check to make sure the blueprints match what the actual layout was. In this case, it didn't. So we had to make some adjustments. We pulled an audible halfway through to kind of move where the rear speakers were going to be because he has kids. We
Mhm.
wanted to make sure that it was family safe as well. But it really brings me a ton of joy. I have one that I haven't published yet of a really good friend of mine from London, doing like a very basic 5 channel for him. And I'm finding that there's a lot of requests now for projects that are not 11 channels, 9 channels, 4 subs, 17 ceiling speakers,
Mhm.
segregated audio. Like, it's how do I turn my living room into something I'm really going to enjoy? And so London was that. The one I didn't document that I just did was in Guelph, about 30 seconds from my place. So yeah, it's so much fun, but very different than what you'd be used to seeing.
Now, I have a couple of questions for you. One is, when do we get to see a follow up that shows Tyler's completed home theater setup?
Yeah. Uh, so the house is done. They have
Uh-huh.
moved in, but he is not at the stage yet where he is investing in the equipment.
Oh, okay.
But as soon as that does happen, there will be a follow up, and I'm looking forward to bringing it. This one's cool. This one's like a 9 channel setup. I'm pretty jazzed about it.
So in the meantime, does he just go and sit in that room and watch movies on his phone?
Pretty much. You know, he goes up and he goes upstairs and has to deal with the entire family, which I'm sure is not something
Oh.
he would want to do.
And my second question is free, looking for free advice here.
Yeah.
Our cave downstairs where we
Mhm.
watch movies and hockey games and play games and whatnot it's tiny. It's a little bedroom basically with a bed that's kind of built into the wall, and like, I think there's probably a boulder underneath it. We're like, our house is built right into a hill,
Yeah.
and it's probably, I think it's like 6 feet wide, maybe six and a half, and maybe
Yeah.
10 feet long.
Yeah.
So and we've only ever had a 5.1 system in there, and
Yeah.
I've in my mind, because we did. Oh, like one of the good things when we built our house, we got almost all the stuff installed, because we had to, in wiring wise, because we had the uh, electrical wiring replaced because it was old knob and tube. So I got
Yep.
Cat 5, sorry, at the
Mhm.
time, Cat 5e, coax, and phone cable to every room. But part of that process, I never thought of doing speaker wiring in this awesome little cave
Yep.
downstairs. So it's shameful. We still have like speaker wire running along one side of the room there. Now, for that size, that type of space, like let's call it 6 by 10. Um, is 5.1 fine, or would there be any advantage to going like 7.1, or God forbid 9.1?
Uh 5.1 is more than fine.
Okay.
If I was going to do anything in a room like that, I would
Mhm.
actually do a 5.1.2. So I would incorporate front heights in an Atmos, but not the in ceiling
Okay.
stuff.
Okay.
So what I would do is I would incorporate it about 35, 40 degrees,
Mhm.
kind of the speakers that kind of sit up in the corner of the ceiling and the wall and shoot down.
Right.
What I love about that setup is the way, as long as your receiver, depending on the receiver you have,
Mhm.
Denon does a really good job of this. If you wanted to move to one of them, they really elongate the front sound stage. Like when we watch a movie, as much as we love surround, we
Mhm.
emotionally get engulfed in the front sound stage. The booms, the crashes, the bangs, the vocals, the movement. And what I love about that front height is it takes your viewing experience from here
Mhm.
and opens it up kind of to ceiling. and it's a relatively small investment. You can fish the wires as long as you're running drywall. It's not overly intrusive. There's some companies obviously offline. I can give you some recommendations.
Mhm.
And that to me is a really cool and inexpensive-ish sort of way to really kind of lengthen that kind of audio immersion experience. I
Gotcha.
love them. It's my favorite part.
All right, we'll have to have an offline conversation and dig deeper into that. But for mom and dad, if you're still watching, 5.1 means 5 speakers plus 1 subwoofer.
Yeah.
7.1, 7 speakers, 1 subwoofer. You can get
Okay, so what does 7.1.2 mean then?
that's the next question. Those are your extra Atmos
Yeah. So the
stealing or
first number,
upfiring. Yeah.
the first number is your surround speakers.
Yep.
So 5, 7, 9.
Yep.
The middle number is your sub. So 0.1, 0.2,
I
or
can't
in our
imagine having 2
case,
subwoofers in that little space.
we have 4.
Jesus.
We run 7, 7, 4, 4. And then the third number is how many Atmos or height speakers you have.
You better
So
not blow up the
downstairs, we
Death
run
Star because
7
you're going to take down your
surrounds.
house.
Yeah, 7 surrounds. We run
Yeah.
4 subs, and then we
Uh-huh.
have 4 height speakers. One in the front corner, the way I just described, and the other is a mid height.
Wow.
Yeah.
Good stuff.
It's fun.
All right, we'll have to offline that more before we.
I would love to, man. Happy to chat anytime about it.
Nice stuff.
So yeah, so anyway, you'll see a little bit more of this coming.
Mhm.
The London project will get done, and obviously Tyler's will get followed up on.
Looking forward to it. So we
once he's
can
ready to do it.
find you at youtube.com and search for Get Smith, or there'll be a link in the show notes.
I appreciate it.
And you have another project which is non-Fabulous Flicks related, but I saw it on Facebook recently, and this is another passion project of you. You are a busy guy. Tell us all about, is it pronounced double cross golf?
Double cross.
You couldn't afford to buy a vowel, I take it?
It's correct.
You're such
double cross in golf is like the second worst feeling that you can ever have hitting a golf ball.
What does it mean?
So
that shows
a
you how
double
much golf I've
cross.
played.
So as a right-handed golfer,
Okay.
if you want to hit the ball left to right, it's called a cut.
Okay.
When it goes wrong, it goes left to left and literally goes way out of play and you're dead.
Mhm.
That's called a double cross. When the ball that's supposed to go left to right goes left to left as
Gotcha.
a right-handed golfer. So we started doing kind of fun t-shirts and hoodies about 3 years ago.
Mhm.
Funny golf sayings. We just did these hoodies. We printed them at home. We were kind of into vinyl, so it was fun. About 18 months ago, my wife asked me if I would ever consider doing golf shirts, to which I asked her if she was high, because I thought she was literally kidding. But in that time, I was working with Gray and kind of
Mhm.
was expanding my knowledge of the online space and kind of what that looked like. And she's like, "You're a smart guy. Figure it out." We were both working at home. We had the time.
Mhm.
I hadn't started my corporate gig at that point. And so we started investigating it. So 18 months later, 2 rounds of samples, which are not cheap. Doing any type of samples are very expensive from
Mhm.
overseas. We found a manufacturer overseas in Vietnam, got to learn about the sublimating process, how sizing charts work. I spent like a week measuring shirts and kind of tweaking it as to how I would like it, because I'm a very passionate golfer. Golf is, again, one of my 3 things.
And sublimating has to do with the printing, correct?
Printing and coloring and what that does to the ink and how it affects sizing. But really, it was about fitting and sizing and the way trends are moving and things that I didn't necessarily love.
Mhm.
The other thing I didn't love is if you wanted a top-end golf shirt, it costs you $140. Companies like RLX, Peter Millar, Grayson are all $140 a piece. Well, there's literally no difference, even in country of origin, as to our double cross stuff. So it is the same makeup. What we did is I made them a little bit longer. So those of us that are affected by COVID, it's better for keeping the shirts tucked in.
Circumference-wise, you mean?
That's right. I shorten the sleeve a little bit, because if you've ever watched golf on TV, you see people hiking their sleeves up. It's
Nice.
actually not comfortable. So we made our sleeves a little bit shorter. We did sayings on the back of them, which is traditionally a big no-no. And humbly, the response it was a risk. I almost abandoned it. My wife pulled me back on track probably 3 times, especially as I started work. I said, "Look, I don't have time to put this into it." And she's like, "Yes, you do. Don't be lazy." And so we did a pre-order. We ordered 212 shirts. So there's definitely a bit of an investment there.
Yep.
And the response has been humbling.
Wow.
Like friends of mine that have been in the golf industry for 15, 20 years, hey man, I just got my shirts. I'm not telling you this because we're friends. Like they're the best fitting shirt I've ever put on. Like to have a golfer tell another golfer that what you've created is the best fitting thing they've ever put on. It's weird to even say it out loud. Like I'm not a big self promoter when it comes to that at all, as you know. But it is overwhelming. And our shirts are, if you buy one, they're $69. If you buy two, they work out to $59. If you buy three, they work out to $49.
And that's Canadian dollars, right?
And that's Canadian dollars.
Beautiful.
Yep. And the thing was, this friend of mine who gave that praise recently said, what the world is missing is a really nice golf shirt for $50, which I kind of laughed. I'm like, that's probably impossible. Well, it's not if you don't want to do it for a living. and that's really the goal, because people say, what does this look like if all goes well? This is never going to be a full-time job. Yeah. The goal is to have, 400 or 500 guys who are on a list and they're fans of the product. We have existing relationships. They know it's kind of very boutique. And once a year, maybe twice a year, a drop comes out with 2 pieces. So the next one, I want to do a shirt and like a really nice pullover, because golfers love a good pullover. And I want to do this drop and be like, okay, there's 200 available, go. And then they buy them, they drop them, and that's it.
Yeah. Well, we got to get Tasia repping your stuff down in Scottsdale, Arizona, because I'm sure there's some golfing going on down there. If they,
it's been a lot of fun, and I can't give enough praise to my wife, who really kept us on track, because I pretty much tried to abandon it, I think, a couple times.
Well, that is awesome, and I've got.
Thanks, man. I
can think of a couple of golf buddies that I will point toward your site. Indeed,
I appreciate it, man, very much.
So looking forward to the next drops, maybe in the fall.
Maybe fall, maybe early spring. Yeah, I'm excited.
So last quick shout out to our partner in crime, Tasia Custodi, who has, like clockwork, another YouTube video for us this week, and this one is on.
She's awesome, eh? Oh man.
Best keyboard shortcuts for Mac. This is actually a topic that she delved into a little bit a number of years ago, but then she figured it was time for an update. So you can find her stuff at youtube.com/Tasia Custodi, and all her work at TasiaCustodi.com, including her solo podcast, which comes out irregularly. But her YouTube videos every week, almost without fail.
I wonder if she can test those Mevos. Does she have enough pull for that? Like, can one of them figure this out? Gray, Tasia?
Well, she's on Google's list now for samples, so maybe we can connect her with Logitech.
Right?
Yeah. Anyway, you think in your mind, you only have 2 people on the show. We can get this done in an hour, right? What happens that we end up? I think this is a new record. For
almost 2 hours,
and I know that you are in the Eastern time zone, so I got to let you go. But
that's okay.
Thank you so much for joining us.
This was a blast,
right?
It's interesting because like it was kind of a last minute thing that was going to be you and I, and we were joking about it before we came on. Like, how's this going to work? I'm like, you know what? It's going to, because on the things I know nothing about, I can just have fun with it.
Exactly.
But it was awesome. I really enjoyed the back and forth. Thanks so much for having me. I really look forward to joining you again.
Well, we look
even
forward
if
to
it's just you and I.
We can do it in a pinch.
Absolutely.
And so, Ged and everyone else out there, we hope your week is truly momentous.